not bear political responsibility if the present government ignores the public mandate. The accusations of the opposition that the powers of the Auditor General will be undermined through 20A are false, reiterates the Prime Minister.
A very good evening to all our viewers and welcome to this Sunday's edition of Primetime News, coming to you live from our Newsfirst studios in Colombo. I'm Arundhati Mudannayak. Let's take a look at the stories in detail now. Quarantine police curfew has been imposed for the areas that falls under the Veyangoda police jurisdiction. Meanwhile, Acting Health Services Director General S. Sridharan has informed residents of the Gampa district who display signs of an illness to undergo a PCR test at the nearest hospital. A police curfew was imposed in the Diulupeti area and Binuangodu areas in the Gampaha district until further notice after a woman had tested positive for COVID-19 in the Diulupeti area last evening.
Issuing a statement, the Acting Inspector General of Police said entering or leaving the areas that are under curfew has been prohibited until further notice.
We request the people, especially those residing in these areas, to abide by the curfew. You might recall that the curfew imposed on the 18th of March had lasted for 3 months. However, since 90% of the people abided by the curfew at that time, we were able to curb the spread of the virus and become the second country to have brought the situation under control. On behalf of the police, we are requesting everyone to abide by the curfew while it is in effect. The people will not be allowed to leave their homes during the curfew. Only medical and healthcare services will operate in the areas that are under curfew.
This was the situation in the Binuangodu area this afternoon. Students were seen returning home from tuition classes following this decision. The curfew had been imposed after a 39-year-old woman in the Divulupitiya area had been admitted to the IDH hospital after testing positive for COVID-19. The Department of Government Information said that the woman had tested positive for the virus following a PCR test that was carried out after she had returned home from the Gampaha hospital, at which she was initially hospitalized after developing a fever.
She had obtained medicine from a nearest dispensary due to an illness on the 28th of September. The woman had been admitted to the Gampaha hospital after developing a respiratory illness on the 30th of September. A test had been carried out on the patients in a similar manner to what is done for those with COVID-19 symptoms and respiratory issues. The result of the PCR test that was received last night showed that she had tested positive for the virus. It was after 2 months that we detected a patient from the community.
15 employees at the Gampaha hospital and 40 employees at the workplace of the patient had been subjected to self-quarantine.
The army has taken steps to place the family members under quarantine. There are other families that had come into contact with this family. They are also being transported to quarantine centers. This woman had been serving as a supervisor at a garment factory. She had used an office bus service to commute to her workplace. Accordingly, the passengers who travelled in the bus and the employees who were stationed in a building located at her workplace were directed to undergo quarantine last evening. In addition to that, all individuals who made contact with her during the last few days were also directed to undergo self-quarantine last evening. We are taking steps to transport them to quarantine centers with the assistance of the army. The curfew will continue to be in effect until we identify all possible contacts from which the patient had contracted the disease. Individuals who visited these areas in the recent past must exercise caution as well. We have not been able to identify the point from which the patient had become infected. However, we are continuing our inquiries.
The Department of Government Information said that the close contacts of the patient are being identified and that an inquiry is being carried out to determine the manner in which the woman had contracted the virus.
Necessary arrangements are being made to conduct PCR tests on approximately 1,300 employees at the garment factory. 180 residents of Divulapitia have been subjected to quarantine as well. 85 people in the Minuangode area are also undergoing quarantine. We have identified more than 779 individuals, including her colleagues, who had close contact with the patient. We have collected the details of the factory employees who were from other provinces and had been lodged at the facility. If any employee in that factory had gone back to their hometowns after obtaining leave, we wish to request them to visit the nearest office of the Medical Officer of Health or the medical officer and provide the necessary details.
The Department of Government Information has requested the public to act cautiously while abiding by the health guidelines. Meanwhile, a special discussion was held in Divulapitia with the participation of the relevant officials. Army Commander Shavendra Silva attended the meeting via a video conferencing facility.
The President mainly issued instructions to find the source from which the patient had contracted the virus. That will be a deciding factor for future investigations. Around 23 employees in the factory had displayed signs of illness during the last few days. They are also undergoing quarantine at present.
It was confirmed this evening that the 16-year-old daughter of the COVID-19 patient identified today has also tested positive for the virus. She tested positive while she was in quarantine at the Habaraduva Quarantine Centre.
Meanwhile, the Education Ministry has decided to close down all schools until further notice. The ministry noted that the decision would come into effect from today. The second-term holidays for all Catholic schools, Pirivan institutions and Sila Mata educational institutions will begin from tomorrow in line with the instructions of the Education Ministry. The Ministry of Education announced that all private and international schools will also be closed from tomorrow. Private tuition classes in the Gampaha and Colombo districts will also not be conducted as per the directives of the Education Ministry. Meanwhile, the Kalani University has also been closed down for a week. Chairman of the University Grants Commission, Professor Sampath Amarathunga, said that the Gampaha Vikmarach Ayurveda Institute and Naval Advanced Technological Institute have also been closed for a week. The UGC has instructed students to vacate their dormitories with immediate effect. Meanwhile, all Army, Navy, Air Force and civil security personnel from the Divulapitia and Minuangode areas have been informed to avoid reporting to duty as well. Accordingly, all security officials from other parts of the Gampaha district except for these two areas have been allowed to report to duty tomorrow. The Army has informed its personnel attached to the camps in those areas to avoid leaving their bases. Visitors have been banned from visiting the Mahara and Nigambu prisons as well. Transport Minister Gavini Lukuge said that relevant officials have been instructed to operate transport services in line with the health guidelines. Accordingly, the Sri Lanka Transport Board has decided to restrict the number of passengers in buses to the number of seats. Its chairman, Kingsley Ranawaka, said that the decision had to be made in view of the health guidelines issued due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Private Bus Owners Association has also announced that individuals without face masks would not be allowed to travel on private buses. Further, the Minister of Public Administration, Home Affairs, Provincial Councils and Local Government has also announced that the public day at state institutions scheduled for tomorrow will not take place as scheduled. The Ministry Secretary said that an update on next week's public day would be issued in due course. The health authorities continuously urge the public to follow health regulations that were imposed from the onset of COVID-19. However, people gradually refrained from following these guidelines, and this was highlighted by the security forces and the health authorities as well. The public failed to wear face masks even against the backdrop where there is a risk of COVID-19 spreading socially. The National Freedom Front has said it would not bear political responsibility if the present government ignores the public mandate. The party made these remarks in a letter to Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa over the changes that need to be made to the draft 20th Amendment.
In its letter to the Prime Minister, the National Freedom Front expressed disappointment that the recommendations of its leader Vimal Weerawansa have not been included in the changes that are to be made to the draft 20th Amendment. The party expressed these remarks in the view of the Attorney General's submissions made in court on the changes that are to be made to the bill during the parliamentary debate and committee stages as well. Citing three main revisions that need to be made in the draft amendment, the National Freedom Front said that the matters that need to be rectified have drawn stiff public objection. The letter to the Prime Minister stated that neglecting those matters will negatively impact the image of the government and the spirit of the public mandate. The three factors that need to be rectified include: number one, the exemption of companies that are registered under the Registrar of Companies and in which the government are majority shareholders from a state audit. Number two, passing emergency acts without informing the general public about it through gazette notifications. Number three, extending the removal of the dual citizenship barrier to diplomats and senior government officials instead of confining it to parliamentarians. The National Freedom Front emphasized that these issues created through the draft amendment must be rectified. It added that it is of the stance that the public mandate must be protected and that it would not be politically responsible if the government continues to act while ignoring the people's mandate.
Views were expressed on the political stage regarding the contrary opinions on the 20th Amendment to the Constitution.
The 20th Amendment was presented by the government. It was approved in the cabinet and it was also agreed that it needs to be amended. The court has also been informed about this. If these parties want to further amend this, they can present their proposals to the President and the Prime Minister. There is no issue there. All parties in the alliance have an opportunity to express their stance. We will not stomp over all the other views of the members of the government and advance the policies of only one person like the previous government. Any member of the constituent parties can speak with the President and the Prime Minister regarding these matters. This is one government, one stance and one policy, but there are various parties in the government. They have been allowed to freely express their views. Considering all of this, the government will at the end come to one stance and then the second reading in Parliament will take place. In the committee stage, we will present these amendments as one government, standing on one stance. We will not be divided there. It is not good to take one stance and joke about it as being the stance of the nation, the parliament and the world.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has refuted claims made by the opposition that the powers of the Auditor General would be curbed under the 20th Amendment. A statement issued by the Prime Minister's office rejected claims that the Presidential Secretariat and the Prime Minister's office would be exempted from an audit by the Auditor General. The statement pointed out that both these establishments had fallen under the purview of the Auditor General since the 1978 Constitution had come into effect. It added that the Presidential Secretariat and the Prime Minister's office were brought under the Auditor General's purview under Article 154(1) of the 19th Amendment. The statement also rejected accusations that all government departments would be removed from the purview of the Auditor General through the 20th Amendment. It added that the minister in charge of the subjects can assign the auditing of a state corporation or a state-owned company to a qualified audit firm under Article 154, Sub-Article 2 of the 19th Amendment. The statement noted that this could be done with the consultation of the Auditor General. Accordingly, the Prime Minister said that changes have not been made to these matters through the 20th Amendment. In his statement, the Prime Minister also dismissed claims that an unqualified person can be appointed as the Auditor General through the 20th Amendment. He noted that those appointed as Attorney General, Auditor General or a Supreme Court judge will always have the required educational and professional qualifications to serve in those positions. The Prime Minister pointed out that they cannot function in those positions without these qualifications. He stressed that the unprincipled attempt by the opposition to mislead the people without understanding the facts of the matter must be defeated.
Meanwhile, Kosale Madan, a lecturer at the Jaffna University, says that the abolition of the Constitutional Council by the 20th Amendment would call into question the transparency of public administration.
The President is bound to appoint members to the Commission such as the Police Commission and Judiciary Services Commission on the approval of the Constitutional Council. When appointing the Chief Justice and Auditor General, obtaining the approval of the Council is very important. That means this Council has the power to control the President. An element that ensures democracy of the country is to be removed by the 20th Amendment. A few other commissions will also be removed. When commissions such as the Audit Services Commission and the Procurement Commission are in operation, they ensure transparency and responsibility. When they are removed, there will be an issue. Meanwhile, the Frontline Socialist Party spoke about the reduction of the powers of the Auditor General at a media briefing convened today.
The Prime Minister today issued a communique stating that he is not in agreement to certain provisions of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. The National Freedom Front also issued a release on the same matter. The Prime Minister's communique states that the Prime Minister is against the provisions to remove the PM's and President's office from the purview of the Auditor General. The Prime Minister is saying that although the Auditor General cannot audit companies registered under the Companies Act, where the government has a stake of over 50%, these companies can be audited by private firms. This is a joke. Even in the past, all of the companies were audited by private firms. As the true details of the company's dealings did not come out through these private audit firm reports, the Auditor General stepped in. It was only the Auditor General who revealed the malpractices and fraud at these companies and not the private audit firm reports. Now they are trying to deprive the taxpayers of this country from the right to know what is happening to their money. On one hand, the President is bringing in the 20th Amendment to the Constitution, and the Prime Minister and the government ministers have begun to voice their objection against that. This is a complete joke. The people are now just observing a tug of war. All we can do is laugh out loud at the things that are happening because we cannot attach any political importance to these incidents. The opposition from the Prime Minister and the government ministers against the 20th Amendment to the Constitution is good comedy at a time when we are losing many comedians in the country. We humbly request the general public to work towards defeating the 20th Amendment.
කොමීඩියන්ස්ලා අහිමි වෙමින් යන යුගයක ජනතාවට ලේ පිරිසුදු කරගන්න hina වෙන්න ඕවා හොඳයි.
The People's Justice Centre issued a warning to the government today.
විශේෂයෙන්ම මේ බදුර්දින් සහෝදරයා නිදහස් කිරීම.
There are several issues regarding the release of Badruddin's brother. It is hilarious to see that they are citing a lack of evidence despite detaining him at the Criminal Investigation Department for 5 months. Based on the manner in which he was released by the CID, based on their wishes without any court procedure or filing a case against him, we can observe a similarity between the conduct of the CID under the Good Governance government and its conduct at present. We can observe this by examining the statement made by Jaliya Senaratne on the day the suspect was arrested and the one he made after his release. There is a problem with regard to the 20th Amendment. The support of the opposition must be obtained for that. The government must keep in mind that it was the bhikkhus who laid the foundation in the society that allowed them to obtain a 2/3 majority. If they forget that and continue to engage in deal politics while deceiving the people will provide the relevant response to them regardless of which court in which they have been acquitted.
ලබා දෙයි කියන එක තමයි අපට මේ වෙලාවේ සඳහන් කරන්න තියෙන්නේ.
Various views expressed on the political deals that are taking place at present.
කිසිම අපරාධකරුවෙක්
We wish to state that we will not allow any criminal, thief or person who is linked to terrorism or is facing such charges to join the government. We wish to tell the respectable Mahasangha, His Eminence the Cardinal and the people of this country that the government does not have any deal with Rishad Badruddin.
ආඩිනල් හිමියන්ටත් මේ රටේ ජනතාවටත් සිහිපත් කර සිටිනවා. පාස්කරදා බෝම්බ ප්‍රහාරය සම්බන්ධ.
What is being implied by the sudden release of certain individuals who were arrested over the April 21st attacks? It has to do something with the 20th Amendment. Before the presidential and parliamentary elections, they said that the individuals responsible for this would be punished and held accountable. However, they are breaking that promise. This shows that the government wants to obtain their support for the 20th Amendment by offering them positions and privileges. The people must defeat this.
ඒක ජනතාව ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කළ යුතුයි.
The government will not do something like that to obtain a 2/3 majority or a higher percentage of support. We wish to state that very clearly. Deals were made under the previous government. We do not strike deals by making the people scapegoats. We would not engage in dealings with such individuals as well.
ආණ්ඩුව හැටියට අපට තුනෙන් දෙකක් ඉන්නවා. ඉන් පරිබාහිරව
As the government, we have a 2/3 majority. If an opposition parliamentarian wishes to support the 20th Amendment, we cannot stop that, as it is his right. Trying to stop that is an undemocratic action. Therefore, objection cannot be raised against any individual who wishes to support this while being in their respective parties. We cannot act against democracy.
කාටවත් වෙන්න බෑ. ඒ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී අයිතියට එරෙහි වෙන්න බෑ.
දැන් අපිට පේනවා මේ ආණ්ඩුවේ ඉන්න ප්‍රබලයින්ගේ බොහෝම හිතවතුන් බවට.
We can see how the brothers of certain individuals who have close ties with powerful figures in the government are being released and how court cases are being dismissed. We can observe that the government is exercising a lenient approach towards this matter by releasing individuals like the brother of Rishad Baduddin in a haphazard manner and maintaining friendly ties with them. We can say that the government is trying to make them clean figures.
ඔයා කරගැනීමේ න්‍යාය පත්‍රය තමයි අපිට පේන්නේ.
The opposition raised allegations that the government has struck a deal with Rishad Baduddin to secure a two-thirds majority in parliament for the passage of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa assured that there has been no deal struck with the leader of the All Ceylon Makkal Congress, former Minister Rishad Baduddin. The president made this statement via a post on his official Facebook page. He stressed that national security is the number one priority of the government and that steps are already underway to achieve this. The president also said that the right of every citizen to live without fear will be established and there will be no room for any communal or religious extremism in the country. The post further adds that a severe breakdown in the defense sector of the country and a political and social setting that promoted extremism was the reason behind the April 21st attacks. It adds that the Presidential Commission of Inquiry is conducting hearings on the incident and the Criminal Investigations Department is also conducting extensive investigations. The social media post adds that strict legal action will be instituted against the suspects after the conclusion of these investigations. The President adds that politicians will not be given the power to arbitrarily arrest or release suspects. The President also said that if there has been a mistake on the part of the officials, these will be rectified. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa assured the public that he will not betray the trust placed in him by the people and added that he will work towards further strengthening the people's faith in him.
Meanwhile, a silent protest was held before the St. Sebastian Church in Katuapitiya this morning, requesting proper punishment for the suspects of the April 21st attacks. Family members of those who were killed in the April 21st attacks last year and the family members of those who were disabled in the attacks took part in the protest.
Please do justice to those who lost their lives. Those who were killed are gone, but our families are shattered. We are lost. My wife and my 2 children died in the attack. We need justice. If not, God will have to see to it. From what we understand, it is clear that all politicians are the same. It was for political reasons that there were bomb attacks. All 225 are the same. I'm not completely cured. My rib bones are still broken. No justice has been served. We have fallen onto the roads.
This whole facade is created because some try to do politics over the bodies of those who lost their lives in the April 21st attacks. During the time of the election, Rishad Baduddin and his family members were those who supported the terrorist attack. Many people said various things. They said Sathasa vehicles were used for the attacks. Now the CID is saying that there is no evidence against this person to prove that he took part in terrorist activities. So what has happened from then and now is that the country and the people have been deceived. Those who lied will one day be drowned in their own lies. I think it is best to appoint a committee to show the country about the groups and institutions that lied and created a false picture about the April 21st attacks.
බොරු කරපු ආයතන බොරු චිත්‍රයක් මවා පාපු ඒ කණ්ඩායම් ටික රටට හෙළිදරව් කරොත් හොඳයි කියන එකයි මගේ අදහස.
Views were also made about the government's two-thirds majority.
දැන් හැමෝම කතා කරනවා 20 ගැනයි.
They are talking about the 20th. First they have to get a two-thirds majority. The government has members close to a two-third. I would like to ask, do they need two-thirds majority to reduce the price of coconuts or rice? Should they have a two-thirds majority for the people to get the turmeric they need? The two-third was created in this country based on the April 21st attack facade. In this procedure that confused the people, the government has obtained a majority close to two-thirds. But I see such a mandate as a false mandate. Therefore, we cannot approve this 20th Amendment that can bring about only harm to the country. We will defeat the 20th Amendment with the support and the strength of the people.
කිසිසේත්ම රටට වින කරන ව්‍යාජ 20වෙනි සංශෝධනය සදාචාරාත්මකව අනුමත කරන්නටත් බෑ. අපි ජනවරමෙන් ජනසවියෙන් ජනශක්තියෙන් 20වෙනි සංශෝධනය පරාජය කරනවාමයි.
The opposition leader made these comments during a visit to the Sri Shasana Lankara Vihara in Kuliyapitiya today.
Moving on to other local stories, 10 turtle carcasses were found along the Valavatta and Golf Face beaches during the past 48 hours.
The first incident was reported close to the Mount Lavinia Hotel last evening. The remains of 3 deceased turtles had washed ashore. Bloodstains were seen close to the eyes and the mouth of the turtles. The police lifeguards took steps to bury the bodies of these turtles along the Mount Lavinia coast. The bodies of 6 other deceased turtles were discovered this evening. Zonal wildlife officers from the Bellanvilla zone had arrived at the scene to investigate the incident. The wildlife officers exhumed the bodies of the turtles this evening. The remains were taken for further investigations.
Mundaragala provincial correspondent Indunil Vijayanayake was attacked yesterday while filing a report on sand mining in Kumbukkanoya.
The correspondent had received information that sand mining had been taking place under the Kumbukkana bridge in Mundaragala. Area residents say that this had been taking place by misusing permission that has been granted to remove mud from the area. During this incident, an individual who arrived at the scene demanded that the correspondent delete the recorded footage. It is during this instance that the journalist had come under attack. While one suspect had been arrested, the police said that a search operation is underway to locate the other suspect. The journalist, who sustained injuries, has been hospitalized. The attack on the journalist bears testament to the suspicion that an illegal activity is taking place in this area. Attempts made by racketeers to instill fear on the media by means of assault or any other methods will never be able to deter us. We are ready to expose the forces that are backing these individuals who attempt to threaten the media.
Moving on to sports news now, NP Virasuri of the Air Force emerged champion in the annual sharpshooter contest that was held today.
The Hill Country Shooting Club had organized the contest for the 9th year this time at its firing range in Hantanam. 182 shooters from the Tri-Forces, the police and 9 shooting clubs took part in the event. The finals and the awarding ceremony took place under the patronage of Sports Minister Namal Rajapaksa. The minister took part in an exhibition shooting contest during the event. NP Virasuriya of the Sri Lanka Air Force emerged the champion, while HRDD Fernando of the Air Force finished off as the runner-up of the contest.
When speaking about the usage of guns, we can observe that it has been used for the wrong reasons in the past as well. During the next 5 years, we believe that the gun that was used to claim lives would be transformed to help us clinch a medal. My ministry will extend our fullest support towards that.
Meanwhile, the selection of national karate referees scheduled to be held tomorrow has been postponed indefinitely given the prevalent situation in the country. And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of Primetime News. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.